The width of a rectangle is 6 more inches than its length. The perimeter of the rectangle is 24 inches. Find the dimensions. So for perimeter problems like this, what I do is I label length, length, width, and width. So we know that the perimeter is the distance around an object. So the length plus the width plus the length plus the width is equal to perimeter, or this is the same thing as 2L plus 2W. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an equation for the width is 6 more than the length. So the width is, remember, is equals 6 more, so 6 more than the length. So I have an expression for W written in terms of L. So what I'm going to do is instead of writing W, I'm going to write L plus 6. So now I know that the perimeter is 24, but then I have, instead of writing W, I'm going to write L plus 6 plus L plus L plus 6 plus L. So I can solve for L. I would be stuck if I had 24 equals 2L plus 2W because I'd have two variables. So now this is 24 equals 4L plus 12. And then if I subtract 12 from each side, I'll have 12 equals 4L. Then if I divide by 4, I'll have 3 equals L. So L, the length is 3 inches, and then the width is 6 more than that, so the width is 9 inches. So dimensions are 3 inches and 9 inches. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one over here. So if I put W or L, L, W, W, and then I have the length is 2 less than 3 times the width. So the length is 2 less. Remember, if it's 2 less, you put minus 2 at the end. 3 times the width. So in this case, I have it written in terms, L written in terms of W. So I'm going to cross off the L and write 3W minus 2. So now this all needs to add up to 32. So I'm going to have 32, because that's my perimeter, equals W plus 3W minus 2 plus W plus 3W minus 2. So I have 32 equals W, 3W, W, 3W, which is 8W minus 4. So I'm going to get 36 equals 8W, and divide both sides by 8. This is 4.5. So W equals 4.5 or 4.5 centimeters. So to figure out what L is, I plug W back in for L, or W in for W right here. So it's going to be 3 times 4.5 minus 2, which is 11.5. So you want to make sure you do units. So when you're asking for dimensions, you have to find the length and the width. Okay, also consecutive integer problems. So consecutive means back to back, and integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to show algebraically how to do this. I know that some people can just do it in your head, or you can keep guessing and checking your calculator, but we're trying to, or I'm testing you on your ability to set up an algebraic equation. So the sum, so that means adding, of 3 consecutive integers is 147. So to set that up, I let the first integer be x. Then the next integer is going to be 1 more than that, so it's going to be x plus 1. Then the next integer is going to be 1 more than that, so it's going to be x plus 2. The sum is 147. So this one represents the first integer, this represents the second integer, this represents the third integer. So now I'm going to combine like terms on one side. So I have 3x plus 3 equals 147. And solve for x. Subtract 3. So 3x equals 144. And then 144 divided by 3 is 48. So the first integer is 48. That's right there. So the next integer is 49, and the next integer after that is 50. So it doesn't matter if it's if you're doing consecutive integers, they're going up by 1. But if it's going to specify consecutive even or odd, you can do x, then the next integer is going to be 2 more than that. So if you had the odd number 5, then 2 more than that is going to be the next odd number. So it's going to be x plus 2. And then you're going to skip 2 more than that, so it's going to be x plus 4 equals 261. So I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 3x plus 6 equals 261. Subtract 6 from each side. So 261 minus 6 is 255. Divide that by 3, and you get x equals 85. So the next odd number is going to be 87, and then it's going to go to 89. So what I'm checking for is if you can actually set up the equation and solve it. When you're doing rate problems with trains or cars or people moving, what I like to do is organize a table. So what you need to know is that rate is equal to distance divided by time. So if you're talking about a rate of speed, you would say miles per hour. So what if I solve for distance, I multiply both sides by t, I'll get distance equals rate times time. So oftentimes we're trying to solve given a distance. So I set up a table, and my rate, you're usually given a rate. You're not usually given a time, a specific time, but we're going to let the variable t be time. So if I let a train station leaves traveling at 48 kilometers per hour, I don't know what the time is, so I'm going to let t be time. But I know that 4 hours later, train B leaves the same station in the same direction at 68 kilometers per hour. So I can let this be t as well. But the key thing is 4 hours later train B leaves. So that means I need to, this train A has been traveling more than train B. Train B has traveled 4 hours less. If it leaves 4 hours later, it means it's had 4 less hours to travel. So this is going to be t minus 4. So if we know that distance equals rate times time, I'm going to do distance equals rate times time. So this expression is going to be 48t. And this expression is going to be 68 times the quantity t minus 4. Because I multiplied 68 times t minus 4. So the question reads, in how many hours will train B catch up to train A? So when will their distances be equal? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this expression, 48t, equal to 68 times t minus 4 and solve for t. So I have 48t equals 68t minus 4 times 68 is 272. So if I get my t's on one side by subtracting 68t, I'll get negative 20t equals negative 272. And if I divide by 20 or negative 20, I'll get 13.6 hours. So in 13.6 hours, that's exact, train B will catch up to train A. So you could either interpret it as 13.6 hours after A started, or if we're just talking about, see, T is 13.6 hours, but B is actually traveling 4 less than that. So I'm going to write out what my specific answer is going to be. So I'm going to write train B will catch up after it goes for 9.6 hours. So I want to specify because train A is going to travel 13.6 hours and train B is going to travel for 9.6 hours. And since it asks how many hours will train B catch up with train A, I'm going to answer it that way. So if you're not sure how to answer it, just write it out in a sentence what your answer is going to be. So you can have, this one was the same direction, so you had two things start. One started slower after the other one. Now the second one, you could have them traveling in opposite directions. So Haley and Alex leave their house traveling opposite directions. So Haley goes one way and Alex goes the other. Haley drives 30 miles an hour faster than Alex. After 4 hours, they are 440 miles apart. Find Alex's rate. This time we're asking about a rate. So if we have to find Alex's rate, I'm going to let that be, well, this will be Alex, this will be Haley. Alex will be R. So the time, Haley drives 30 miles an hour faster. So we can write an expression for that. So Haley has to be R plus 30. After 4 hours, so we know the time is 4 hours, they are 440 miles apart. So we know that this distance has to be 440. So I'm still going to write an expression for distance, which is 4r, and this one's going to be 4 times r plus 30. So we have Haley's distance is 4r, and Alex's distance is 4r, and Haley's is 4 times r plus 30. We want to see when that total is 440, so we got in our equation right here. So 4r plus 4 times the quantity r plus 30 has to equal 440. So I'm going to do the distributive property. And then I'm going to combine like terms and solve. So I'm going to get 8 r's equals 440 minus 120, which is 320, and divide by 8. So r equals 320 divided by 8 is 40. So Alex travels, because that's what the r is right here, 40 miles per hour. And we weren't asked, but Haley travels 70 miles an hour because r plus 30 is going to be 70.